You live and live. We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, rise and shine. This is Wake Up Africa, the ninth episode, 1st of March 2025. How are you, Africa? We had a bit of challenges on the eighth episode. We couldn't go live, and a bit of a delay on this ninth episode. But here we are, Africa. There's no stopping us, there's nothing to stop us. We are going on, and I'm happy and glad that you are able to tune in and discuss the very interesting topic today that we have. How can Africa stop labor movement moving from outside Africa, but stay back in Africa as we build Africa's economy? We want to retain as much labor in Africa as possible. So, what would it take that Africa remains in Africa and build its own economy? I want us to debate this Saturday morning, but at this juncture, allow me to also thank everyone behind this podcast, everyone behind this Wake Up Africa in a very special way. Noreen, wherever you are in the US of A, thank you so much for making this late back there to make sure that this show goes online. Essa, we miss you on the show. But my dear correspondents, all the way from every part of Africa, I have Alan Subi, my one and only, all the way from Uganda. I have Remy, all the way from Rwanda, Elliot from Burundi. Wake up. This is Wake Up Africa. Not to forget Patricia Ndere from Kenya. Today we'll also be joined by my dear Anna Maneno. Anna Maneno joining us from South Sudan. Delighted to have you with us on the episode as we're looking on to what would it take really for Africans to remain back in Africa and build our own economy. Can we do that? Can we remain back in Africa and say, no, I'm not going? Or if we go, what are those factors that make us leave African continent, our beautiful mama Africa, to go abroad to work there? I wouldn't say really to work, because if you look onto the majority of jobs that our people are doing outside Africa, it's sad. I wouldn't use the word pathetic because I do not have any word closer to that, but it's really sad. You know, you get to wash the dishes that you wouldn't wash at home here in Africa. You get to go to the farms that you wouldn't go to the farms here in Africa. You know, we want to come up with a solution. We want to come up with possible ideas and as on to how then whoever responsible, be it the public sector, be it the private sector, how can we stop labor movement from outside Africa to remain back in Africa and build our own economy? So, as we are looking onto this topic, Wake Up Africa, 1st of March, I also wish to extend to our dear Muslim brothers everywhere in Africa and the world as they start the holy month of Ramadan. A happy holy month, a happy fasting. We Christians will be starting mid this coming week on Wednesday with the Ash Wednesday. So we will be joining you shortly, but happy fasting. Do not be tempted by the water, tea, coffee I'm sipping. And apologies for that, my dear brothers and sisters of the Islamic religion. Now, from the research and the study gathered over the 2 weeks was outside Africa primarily occurs due to significant economic disparities between the countries. Significant economic disparities between the countries, with many Africans seeking better job opportunities. This again, I'm saying, you would hardly find, and I remain corrected. We have, yes, we do have Africans working with the blue collar jobs outside Africa, but the percentage, which I'm yet to gather, the percentage of Africans working on blue collar jobs vis-a-vis Africans in Africa working on blue collar jobs. So Most Africans seek better job opportunities. Question mark, question mark. You will tell me what are these better job opportunities. But we're also looking onto higher wages. Maybe higher wages. But the little that I know, especially on this component of higher wages, is the fact that Africans, Africans or migrant labor, and any job elsewhere, you work per hour and you're paid per hour. So if you do 2 hours of labor, you get that equal amount of pay for the 2 hours that you've toiled. If you're at 3 hours, if you're at 6 hours, if you're at eight, if you work 8 hours, etc., etc. So higher wages, true. But if higher wages is what makes labor movements from outside Africa, and you get paid as what you earn, would you still call that higher labor, higher wages? Because at the end of the day, look onto whichever amount of money you earn. And I stand to be corrected, but I think borrowing an example, payments in pound, they pay like what, £8 an hour, which is equivalent to like 24,000 shillings an hour. If you work 8 hours, that's about 160, 180, close to 200,000 shillings a day. And if you don't, of course, they don't work the whole month, like 30 days. You have, I don't know, you tell us. But higher wages, let's debate on that. But again, improved living standards. Yes, outside Africa, they could be having improved, better living standards more than what we have in Africa. But again, if we all leave, who will make living standards better here in Africa? So we have to stay back, create conducive work environment. If it is salary that we have to negotiate, then let's negotiate salaries, but can we retain the African labor? So often driven by factors here now, um, poverty, unemployment, political instability. Now, if you move out of your continent because of political instability, what does that mean? That is not you going to work. That is migration. Borrowing from my previous examples working for UNHCR, fleeing, political instability, then you will be forced to flee. And when you flee into any country, the government in that country is supposedly looking after you, taking care of you up until your country is back stable again. So I am contemplating on political instability as one of the factors that really make us Africans or anyone in the world leave their countries to go to work or labor movement. Okay? Migration is always facilitated by historical colonial ties between African nations and European powers. Well, so what it is that we want to do? We want to go to the colonial masters and do what? Africans, wake up, Africa. We really need to change our narratives, which can now lead to establishing migration routes and cultural connections. So we are tracing back our roots, but our roots are back in Africa. This is where they plunged us out of Africa to go and work in their farms out in Europe. Now, when you want to reconnect, yeah, you have to go back to Europe, but they took you from Africa. Why don't you trace back your roots back in Africa? How can we then stop labor movements from Africa? How can we retain Africans to remain back in Africa? How can we ensure that the skilled labor that is required to build the African economies, the African continent, remains here in Africa? This is what we're pondering, my dear viewers of Wake Up Africa, this Saturday, the 1st of March. And I'm happy that, you know, we are discussing this. The purpose of really putting this into perspective is we really want to change this narrative. Can we still think of going outside Africa because better job opportunities? Can we create better job opportunities in Africa? I know we discussed in one of the episodes how, there's a mismatch between education, school graduates, and the jobs that are being created. But again, can we all attest that we really need to discuss policies, environment, and political environment, economic environment that is very conducive to attract investors, local and foreign, but create jobs so that everything that comes out of our universities is absorbed within our job markets here in Africa so that we do not have labor movement. So better job opportunities. Can't we create better job opportunities in Africa? Wages. Again, borrowing from my previous work back in the days, we used to conduct what they call salary survey. Salary survey, whereby we're able now to tell certain qualifications, certain job experience would be pleasant to acquire to earn certain amount of income. Now, if we leave Africa because there are better, higher wages elsewhere, can we bring that on the table with those who are responsible to setting the standards and practices that we have better wages so that we retain our labor in Africa? If and I'm contemplating if we take labor outside Africa, what are we left with? Those in school, the young ones who have no job experience whatsoever, and the elderly, the retired, or those now who are coming back from Europe for one way or the other. Maybe life got so difficult there, then they decide to come back home, and then there's not so much that they can contribute because they either come back tired, retired, old age, and they can't keep up with the pace that African economies are catching up with. Improved living standards. Yes. If you look onto the country like the United States of America, they gained their independence back in 1773. Here in Tanzania and most African countries, we are looking onto 56, 60s, not more than 70s, 70 years of independence. Now, we can't compare the two. They get their independence long time ago. China, for instance, got what? China was already industrial over 500 years ago. Over 500 years ago. 500 years. Okay. Now, when you say, I want to go to a country with improved living standards, and you leave, you take your labor power that could have stayed back in Africa, build the own African countries and economies so that our children and their children do not have to leave like you did, but they stay back and build the African continent. Can't that be done? And how long do you say I'm going out so that I could get the improved living standards outside Africa? Who then should come and build our living standards? Who should come and improve our living standards? I'm thinking out loud, and I really want to pick up the brains of Africans this Saturday morning, 1st of March, to really discuss and ponder how can we ensure that we retain the labor back in Africa so that we improve, we build up better living standards. Okay? Then the issues of poverty. But again, the word poverty for me for the longest time has been a very relative word. Relative in what sense? What is poverty? If you were to compare two nations, then you can say this one is poorer than the other. Yes. But how did they get wherever they are? The ones that we say are better, how did they get to be better? They focused, built their own economies, they used the resources, and apparently, when I speak of resources here, I'm speaking about the resources from Africa mostly, be it labor, be it minerals, be it everything and anything, to build their countries. Now we are the resource producing continent, but better still, we go to their countries because of poverty. Interesting, very funny. Unemployment. The unemployment's everywhere in the world. That one thing I can attest. Not everyone in Europe has a blue collar job. Not everyone in the US has a blue collar job, even their own citizens themselves. So why do we then, because of unemployment, seek it outside Africa? Maybe it's a call to make, and one of the resolutions of eighth and ninth episode of Wake Up Africa, that yes, maybe we create jobs, but we create environment where jobs can be created. And of course, there are many factors looking on to issues like tax holidays for the locals. We have in most African countries, the moment you register a company or a business, then the moment you're also required to start paying taxes. For who? That means if I had not registered that business, I wouldn't have paid tax. But if I register and I start operations, I would create employment. I would have people hired. Then why can't the governments think and consider that no, 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 no? Yes, we want to create more jobs, so let us retain labor by removing some of the taxes. And it's interesting when investors come into Africa, we give them tax holidays into their companies, and they have huge investment capital, but yet we give them tax holidays, 5 years, 10 years, so that they can come and invest. Yes, our people get jobs, but why is it that we can't also think the same for indigenous Africans who are creating jobs, that they have, tax holidays as they start, to enable them start, create jobs, and reduce unemployment? Instability. I really must commend Africa now coming up with the mindset that really tells us no, 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 no. We, we are better united than to engage and involve ourselves in civil war in Africa. And this is how we're changing the Africa's narrative. Instability, as we can see now, almost coming to an end in Africa, and I really am very grateful. We are looking onto the DR Congo conflict. We're looking onto the Horn of Africa, the Horn of Africa as well. We're looking onto the Central African Republic. There's not so much further south, but looking onto this part of Africa. And I believe with the commitment that the African Union, the SADC, my president, Mama Samia, recently convened AU and SADC here in Tanzania to really discuss the Congo conflict, DR Congo. And I'm delighted that, amicable solution will be found and will be found soon so that, we end this. But instability has causes people to flee. I totally agree. People flee because of instability, the lack of peace. You can't work in an environment where there's no peace. Peace of heart, peace of mind. So we really need to, come to the table and say, when we fight, look onto the genesis of the fight. Why do we fight at first point? Can we sit on the table and agree? I know it's not easy as I say it, but yes, there's a quotation that I really can't recall who said it, but he said that 99% of wars could have been avoided if there was a dialogue. Wars could have been avoided if there was a dialogue. Instability, political instability in the home countries. Okay. So we need really now to look onto the history and find really out that had there not been a 1884, 1885 Berlin Conference, Africa was one village. You know what Mwalimu Nyerere, the founding father of Tanzania, once said, Africa was a collection of tribes, collection of tribes. Okay. Now, what can we do? What must we do? So, to as far as some of the reasons from my research that came across, The reasons included economic disparities, which I agree. African countries generally have low wages, high unemployment rates. It says less developed economies compared to countries outside or nations outside Africa, making them more attractive destinations for employment opportunities. But I would ask myself, why would I forego everything that emanates, everything that, brings home together and go work as a laborer, looking onto a proper term in a farm in Europe? Mechanization comes into my mind, but again, I'm thinking mechanization, okay, can't we mechanize in Africa? What would it take for us to mechanize in Africa so that we retain the labor, so that they work in better and conducive environment in the farms, in the mines? Okay. We did mention earlier on higher wages. Where do higher wages come from? If we continue as the African continent exporting raw materials, we would still attract lower wages. If you give peanuts, I recall this from one of the meetings I attended many years ago. If you give peanuts, you'll attract monkeys. Now, in order for us as the African continent to be able to increase the wages of our people, it has to have, or we have to attract higher wages. How do we attract higher wages? By adding value to the produce that come out of Africa. Higher wages. So if we are able to process minerals, if we are able to process raw materials from the farms, add value to them, that means that additional value is what will be the additional wage onto the payroll. Unemployment, this is still a big fight and cry. Oftentimes you hear people saying, I'm leaving the country because I'm going to look for, other than greener pasture, they're going to look for jobs. And we've seen the disparities in the previous programs, that jobs are not equally created in the numbers of those coming out of our universities. Unemployment, it's a global agenda. I'm looking on to living standards. This is all part of economic disparities, living standards. And again, I say that yes, globalization, we are able now to see what's happening in the US, what's happening in Europe, what's happening everywhere in the world. And then we get attracted. We're probably also deceived by the media. This is why we also need to really depict Africa as a beautiful continent. I'm grateful I've traveled, I've seen quite a number of countries, and every country that I've gone, almost every country that I've gone, it's only 2 or 3 countries that I visited and truly said I want to go back to those countries. But the rest of the countries, I wouldn't have wished to stay longer. You look on to when is my flight back home? And if you really want to see how warm Africa is, oftentimes the expatriates coming into Africa, oh yeah, we call them expatriates when they come to Africa, but when we go to their continent, they don't call us expatriates, they call us migrants. So the people coming to work in Africa, when it's time for them to go back, they hardly want to go back. People coming into Africa for many other reasons, tourism reasons, etc., speak of how warm-hearted we are. Why would you then want to live in a country where people are so cold-hearted? Access to better services. Most countries outside Africa often have better healthcare, mhm, education, social security benefits, which can be a major pull factor for African migrants. Healthcare. Yes, I could also be one of the victims. I took my daughter for a checkup. I know a couple of friends that have also recommended or supported to go outside Africa for checkup. But if you again, once again, even when I took my daughter outside Africa for health checkup, I bumped onto African doctors. I bumped onto my fellow Tanzanians, and we're even conversing in Swahili. And I remember one very fine gentleman who said, Austin, I'm here because of education that I had to, get work. But as soon as I finish my school, I want to come back home. I was like, cool, man. We need that character, that aspiration that I'm coming back home so that I can grow my own economy. I can build my own. I can offer services to my people in Africa, healthcare, education. Big challenge. And for me, if you're to ask me right spot on, what is the problem with our healthcare? What is the problem with our education system? I'll clearly tell you that we've politicized this, you know, we've politicized. Can the education system and the healthcare system and all other services driven um, sectors be managed by the private sector? You will tell me because I'm thinking because we've politicized these things, then we are unable now to, bring the changes that we want to see. We are unable to do that. We are unable to do that because the moment you want to bring the changes, the moment you want to innovate, the moment you want to um, bring about the desired changes in the sector, the politics come. Yeah. So I'm thinking if we give this to the private sector and the private sector is now able to really consider running the sector very well in terms of ensuring there's research and development, ensuring proper jobs are created, ensuring proper wages are paid, ensuring so much, then we should actually be able to take a step and build healthcare systems, build education system, build a lot more so we do not have labor living outside Africa. Social security benefits. Social security. So this is me working now. You take part of my salary into the social security so that when I retire, I have something to see me through till I die. So people leave African continent to outside African countries or nations because they have better social security benefits than we have in Africa. But are we glued that we cannot improve our better social security benefits so that the labor that is created in Africa remains in Africa? Okay, so these are some of the pull factors. These are some of the pull factors that really take Africans out of Africa. And I'm looking on to, and I'm happy that Tanzania will be hosting the social security um, companies, organizations, the parastotals, I think in the next 2 weeks. And I think I will pose these questions. Why can't we have better packages or benefits with the social security so that our labor remains in Africa. Education, we see a lot of us parents taking our kids to Europe, to US for studies outside Africa. And then when they come back home, they don't have jobs. Can we really think of the alternative now if they go and come back and can't find decent jobs back at home? Now they come back with their good grades, good English, good exposure, and then they can't blend with the African community because they don't have that authenticity. They've not had that, upbringing into the African cultures and in the African practices. Luckily for education system here, then you have 3 months of internship to have a gist of what really the market in Africa is. This is where we find oftentimes people coming from outside Africa getting frustrated getting jobs in Africa. Then what do? Go back to Europe, get married, make good husbands and wives. Is that the destiny God had put for you? Or you're barring your own destiny? Then I came across what they referred to as colonial legacy. Colonial legacy, my dear friends of Wake Up Africa, the 8th and 9th episode, looking onto labor movement from outside Africa, vis-a-vis retaining Africans so that we build Africa's economies. Many African countries were previously colonized by European powers, creating established migration pathways and cultural connections that can ease integration into European societies. Many African countries were previously colonized, and I do not know why I picked this word, previously colonized. Previous 70 years of independence we still call previous. By European powers creating established migrations pathway. Yes, we connect. Like quite a number of Tanzanians in Germany, quite a number of Tanzanians in Great Britain. I like this. Established migration pathways. It's like your mother gave birth to you and you still want to hold on to that umbilical cord. You still want to hold tight to it. You still want to get food that your mother eats. This is difficult. Established migration pathways and cultural connections. Yes, I mean, I concur with this because even the laws that we use in Africa, most African countries that were under the British colonial power, still use the same laws that are applicable in the UK. So we tend to cling to their systems. Now, once you go there, you've established their migration pathways. You go there, you get attracted, you stay back, you look for jobs there. Who will build Africa other than Africa? And I remember my late president, Magufuli, fifth regime, United Republic of Tanzania, once said, don't ever think anyone from outside Africa will come to resolve your issues. We've got to resolve our issues ourselves. May your soul rest in peace, JPM. Family reunification is another factor. So migrants may also be motivated to join family members who have already migrated to Europe. So when we have visiting family members, and then what happens? We decide to stay back, look for opportunities, open a restaurant. Is it easy to open a restaurant there than here? Is it easy to do business there than here? And then get the raw materials from here. I mean, look at Africa. We spoke the other time of the endowments we have as a continent, and I'm looking on to all other possible opportunity that we have. The crops that we produce in Africa are fresh, best of the best in the world. So why wouldn't I stay back and create the business here, open the restaurants here? The prices could be ridiculous, yes, but if you put your ticket money, if you put your accommodation money, I have my brother living in UK, and he says, "Yo, bro, I'm paying £2,000 for rent." I was like, "Wow, £2,000? That's close to 6 million shillings. 6 million shillings in Tanzania, you attract a very decent house, and probably it's an annual rent." He's paying that per month. So when we go to reunite with our families in Europe or in outside Africa, and then we attempted to stay back, we attempted to look for jobs. We attempted now to start asking, send us this, send us that, send us coffee and tea, and we open cafes. Can that be done here? I met a very interesting lady over the weekend, over during the week. Over some work in Zanzibar, here in Tanzania, and she said, Austin, she was in Canada and she went with honey, and she repackaged. I think she had gone with a 5 liter package of honey, and then she repackaged it to half a liter or quarter a liter, and she was selling it at very good money. But she came back and she said, Austin, I'm going again next week, and I'm going with honey, I'm going with cashews. Yeah, but she came back. And whatever that she earned there, if she spent it there, I'm sure she had some to bring home, remittances. How many of us are remitting back to our countries, building back Africa? There's another sad narration that I came across during my growing that says, yeah, we take our kids to study, work there, then they come back dead back to Africa as a burial ground. Does this really hurt you? Does this really make you think twice that no, we as Africans could do better? That Africa is not a burial ground. Skills shortages in Europe, yes. So they don't have, outside Africa, they don't have a lot of labor shortages. Hence, they create opportunities for skilled African workers. So we go because we are more skilled to work outside Africa, build those countries there. They pay us, but they make sure that whatever they pay us remains in their country as rent, medical, etc. And then what is left of Africa is now every skilled labor, every possible young force that could really remain back and build Africa is swept away, attracted to Europe by cheap jobs, US, elsewhere outside Africa. Who will remain back and build Africa? My friend Chibebe, former ILO director in Africa, in East Africa, because he had like 6 countries that he was managing, once told me, Austin, we've borrowed this earth, but allow me now to, in this context, say we've borrowed Africa, our countries, from the future. So if we've borrowed it, we have to leave it or return it back better than we found it. So if we all leave, and we're in debt because we ought to stay back and build Africa, but we all leave, leaving Africa like this. How can we then leave Africa better? We only leave Africa with graves. Now we ought, there's a phrase that says when your neighbor has greener gardens and you get jealous that, oh, my neighbor has beautiful gardens in his house. Do you know what water bill he also has? To maintain a garden is not cheap. But I want you to have gardens in your house as well. But you ought to really now put into perspective. And why am I bringing this is because I want now to look onto some of the challenges we ought to consider that people, before we move outside our Africa, some of the challenges that Africans face as they move from outside Africa. Visa restrictions, do not know how people maneuver through that. Language barriers, wow. Language barriers. You can't even say, I'm thirsty. Can I have some water? I'm tired. I'm not feeling well. Where is the hospital? It's not like the way you see on movies, there are signages everywhere. No. In those countries that I was blessed to visit, I recall several times where I really got lost. But with the little, exposure, with the little maneuver here and there, I managed to find my way. But it wasn't easy, I can assure you. There was a day I was in Germany and I was going to France. I missed my flight and I had to go to France. So the only option that I was left from the airport was to now catch a train from the airport that would take me all the way to Paris. And along the way, from out of nowhere, they said, we are stopping here. We can't go farther. I think there's a road construction, so we can't, rail construction, so we can't go farther. This is the point. And for those living in Dar es Salaam, it's like from the city center to Bagamoyo, it's about what, about 70 kilometers. So you're already in the outskirts where people hardly or barely even speak English, you know. And there I was. What do I do? I have a connecting train at the border to take me to Paris, a border between the two countries that will now take me to Paris. Then I got out of that train. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't. Luckily, I had, some reserves in my credit card. And boom, got into a taxi, very expensive, of course, onto that destination. And then I'm glad that I really even had to make it in time for my next connection. It's one experience I've never told anyone before, but it keeps, telling me if I did not have the audacity to even step out, tell them this is where I'm going, where is this? At least I know a bit of, yeah, where is this? A bit of English here and there. This, point onto my ticket, my connecting ticket now. Take a taxi, risk it. Someone just told me, get into a taxi, and the taxi driver does not even speak English, you know? And you may find at times they can't even accept the credit cards, the ATMs. They're not even in English at times, not always. So language is one of the barriers we have as one of the challenges in labor migration from outside Africa. Discrimination, you would still see it, you would still find it. I remember once upon a time, because I'm speaking of discrimination, allow me not to disclose this country, but You know, they look down on you. In a train, we were in a train going from one place to the other and gone for short training. They look down on you like, what are you doing in our country? You know, you have that sense when someone is looking down on you. And of course, we see this also in footballers. A lot are claiming to be discriminated because of their race. You barely can find that back at home in your own country where I'm saying, oh, you're so black, or you're so white. I don't know. Any sort of discrimination. Okay. But again, as I spoke early on green pasture or green gardens vis-a-vis the water bill, potential exploitation by employers. I know a friend of mine who would do several hours of work in one of the countries. I wouldn't call that exploitation because she's given an option of whether to stay back or to go home, and then she would choose to stay back because, but again, yes, money. I came across, and it's right in front of me, a quotation once by Elon Musk, a video actually, where he said, "Everyone has many problems. Everyone has problems across the world. But when you have a health problem, all other problems become minor." This is why if you have a bill to pay and all that and all this, you would say, "Let me handle my health problem first, and then I will deal with the rest of the problems." Elon Musk. Now, exploitation by employers, you know, they when they give you ample time, you ought also to consider your health because you're able now to take those jobs because you're physically fit. What if your health fails? In these countries, my dear fellow Africans, if you're not earning, you're not eating. If you're not earning, they kick you out of the house. And the way they kick you out of the house, go onto YouTube and search any video you would find. People falling down on the streets because of hunger, which my, I'm on the fourth floor now. I've never seen such in Africa. I've visited many African countries as well, beautiful African countries. When someone falls down, the first thing that they do is come and ask you, are you diabetic? Do you have any health issues? You know, they would even take you to the hospital, pay anything they have to pay, get you into their cars, ask you if, you know, you've had a meal, give you a bread to just resuscitate you. But my friend, in those countries, you would fall kaboom. I think we've had an incident where I can't recall if it was Tanzanian, but someone back in one of those countries just fell down and died and was diagnosed of hunger. He was hungry and he died. Exploitation. Consider your health. Yes, you want the Benjamins. Yes, they pay those £8 an hour, etc. But your health matters. And those who do double shifts, even worse and crazy. And it's interesting, once again, or read in between my lines. They make you, they make you live whatever you earn in their countries through rent, as I said, all this beautiful entertainment, you know. There's a concert here, you would want to go to that concert. There's a new release of this and that, etc. Exploitation by employers, your health matters. But again, I came across what is referred to as brain drain in Africa. High skilled labor migration from Africa can contribute to a brain drain in their home countries, hindering development. Exploitation of brains of those highly skilled African labor. Okay, so We really can't make use of our very own skilled labor. We challenge them unnecessarily, give them low wages, give them, low social contributions. This brain drain in Africa, then, they kind of say, okay, so if they can't retain me, if they can't pay me well, if they can't use me, let me go to countries where they can make most of my skills. And they leave, brain drain in Africa. At one point, I was really contemplating on, you know, if this skilled labor that is outside Africa comes back and we are able really to retain them, give them the wages they require, the social security benefits, housing, transport, etc. I really stand corrected, but I think Africa will really advance overnight. That I want to believe. And I recall I really can't attest if this was true or not, but one of my presidents visited one of the African countries and visited one fellow Tanzanian who was doing very well in that country. And the president urged him to come back and do the same. And he literally responded, "You can't retain me, you can't pay me. Allow me to continue staying back here because these guys know what I'm doing and they pay me for what I'm doing, what I deliver on the table." And actually, this story now brings me to recalling a statement. Why do you think athletes, footballers, get paid ridiculous amount of money you can't even imagine? Because of the value they put onto the sport. Now, if we have skilled doctors, if we have skilled teachers, but we can't, equate the value that they bring into the equation, how can we retain them? Brain drain in Africa. Those responsible really need to look onto this. Back again onto the political factors, political instability in Africa. Conflict in certain African regions can also push people to seek refuge and employment opportunities outside Africa. Political instability. If all of us in Africa were once a collection of tribes, So what we now have as presidents, back then are tribes, chiefs and tribesmen. Why do we fight in Africa? And I remember one of the very early programs we had was mindset of abundance and mindset of scarcity. Why do we see scarcity in Africa? With all the resources, with all the land, the arable land, I did speak of these factors last episode, the 7th episode. I mean, why do we have to fight over land? There's massive land suitable for agriculture. I was blessed last year when I visited South Sudan and looking onto the plains, the beautiful plains of South Sudan. And I was wondering now, where are the investors into agriculture? Look at these virgin soils, beautiful soils for agriculture. You could do paddy, you could do, fruits. Beautiful. And this is just one example of the country that I personally visited. When I drive across country here in Tanzania, for instance, and I look onto all this land on the east and west, north and south as I drive along, I'm like, wow, look at this land. You know, acreage of land that could really be into plantation agriculture. But we really want to stay in areas which give us immediate gratification, short term, enjoyment and forego the long-term factors that could really transform the African continent. That I'd rather go outside and you leave. Who are you leaving behind? That youthfulness that you have to really build Africa, you are going to take it elsewhere to be exploited there, build the economy there mercilessly, because they will make you earn that penny. And making you is really ensuring that they squeeze the last sweat on you. Squeeze it. You sweat for that pound, you sweat for that dollar. Now, I'm looking onto that very same force that is being used. If that force came back home and brought about the desired change we have, or we aspire, AU has the African we want in 2063, what are we doing now to get to that Africa that we want? If we do not create an environment where we retain the brains and not drain the brains, we retain them, pay them, create an environment where these brains could be conducive research. I had a meeting yesterday at UNESCO and we were looking onto all this beautiful conservation that UNESCO does for Africa, from as simple as what they call intangible heritage, and we have them in Africa. We have the beautiful cultures. I was again out 2 weeks ago in Ethiopia and I visited their dances and I was like, God, you love this continent. Look at these beautiful African dances. You would really live longer just watching these people, from your heart, watching them dance, watching them sing, the style, very unique, very stylish, well dressed, well groomed. From the moment they get onto the stage, you say, yes, they're on point. Visited other countries, what you do, go to a concert, music concert, and that's it. Ridiculous pricing again. You work for 8 hours. They give you the money to buy a ticket to go to a concert. Where now you have alcohol, people stepping on your toes, you have, I don't know, I'm looking onto one artist singing and I'm looking onto a bunch of young people doing the traditional drumming and dancing and jumping and, all colorful, all beautiful African culture. So it's not always green now. My dear viewer of Wake Up Africa, the 8th episode, it's not always greener. And we really need to reconsider, going there. I'm not saying we shouldn't go. I like traveling. I have plans to travel, although I want to really keep it African this time, this year. I already promised Elliot that I'll be going to Burundi in May and all my other friends. But I really want us to travel. Yes, we can travel, but as we travel, we ought to borrow anything that we get from there and bring it back home. Bring it back home. So that, we bring the best practices. I'm not saying they're not best practices. They have best practices, but we bring them home, we ground them home, and hence we stop more people in the future from going outside. If you are to go outside, just as they do. We had a working cocktail yesterday. We were looking on to trade between Tanzania and the US of A, and how the new administration under Donald Trump, the new changes will impact the trade. And I was like, wait a minute. What are we trading with them? What is the balance of trade? If you look onto the FDIs, can anyone give me the numbers of foreign direct investments we have from the US companies in Tanzania? And I wouldn't really allow me not to mention some of the things I had from that discussion yesterday evening, but it's ridiculous. So yeah, let's retain the African labor. Let's retain the African labor. Let's build Africa. Let's build our nations. You know, they ripped us, left us 70 years ago. If today we still cling to saying we are what we are because of the colonial forces, then we are wrong. I stand to be corrected. I want to believe we are wrong because 70 years down the line, 70 years down the line, and here we are. It can't be. It can't be. We have to do something about it. This is Wake Up Africa, broadcast. Apologies for that technical difficulty, but we are back and I am happy that my brother Remy is with me. Remy, good morning, all the way from Rwanda. How are you, Remy, this morning?
Good morning, Austin. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. How is Rwanda?
Rwanda is doing very well, and yeah, we are picking up the momentum of the year. Now, that's what I can say. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that, Remy. Remy, 1st of March, we're on the ninth episode of Wake Up Africa. And our brothers, our Muslim brothers, have started fasting today, so we wish them all the very best. As we are discussing how then, Remy, can we stop labor from moving outside Africa? Remy, why do you think we have labor movement from outside Africa?
So, what I can say is the main reason that we have labor movement from outside Africa is because there are many skills that we are lacking, and we know that we need. That's why we need to outsource them from outside. But also, there is this belief that there are things that uh, Westerners and other experts from different countries outside the continent, there is a belief that we think that there are things they can do that we can't. So also that affects how we perceive their opinions, their skills they bring on the table. And most of the time, you see these big companies, they can hire someone to come and become a project manager, while there are many people in Africa that can do that. We can see that sometimes you are going to host maybe a big event. I think it happened here in Rwanda, and you see like there is an expert from somewhere in Europe, somewhere from US to come and assist. But these are the things that can be done really in Africa, not needing to call someone outside.
So, how do we then encourage and retain labor from moving from Africa, Remy?
All right. So the labor moving from Africa going to outside, it's the first thing we can do about that is about proper and more digitized and more developed education, because most of the things that we will need in the coming near future, we will need to depend highly on skilled labor, and we need our children, our youth, to be educated very well, to the extent that anything that will need will happen in Africa. We will use Africans, and we will do it for Africa. Yeah.
But what steps then do you reckon the private sector or the public sector should take, Remy, so that we see a lot of brains like yourself retained in Africa?
All right. The first step is to give an example. For instance, I'll give an example to our government. You see, like in our public sector, ministers, like uh, like ministers, state ministers, member of parliament, all of those people. Now they are youth. Most of them you cannot find. Like you can find more than 80% of them are younger than 40, 30. Even there are some who have under 30, like 20 something. That's a great achievement. And that, if it starts in public sector, it shows that even in the private sector, it can also be done. And it has been also done, like many board of directors in some companies. You can find it having people who are under 40, under 30. And this is not because we just have to put them there, even if they are not able. No, you put people in places because they are able and they have shown their potential in that field. And in Africa, we have, because as I was saying, if we focus on really the skills that are really needed in this era, and we maximize all the opportunities that are within that area, we know for sure that if we need someone to do a certain task, we must know that we have someone in Africa. And we have to take that leap of faith in trusting our fellow brothers and sisters instead of going outside. Because at the end of the day, if we start doing that, also the youth in Africa, we feel like we are not valuable here, yet there are other jobs in Canada, in Europe, in US that requires our skills. And that's how you end up seeing people moving from Africa going to the other side because they don't find that and they don't see any future in what they are doing. Let's say, for example, if I'm finishing my school in IT, I finish university in IT, and I see most of the jobs that require really high skills, we hire people from outside. I will not be having something to aim for, but if I know I have my fellow brothers and sisters who were studying maybe 3 or 4 years before me and they are in good positions right now, I don't need to go to Canada. I can still grow in my country, support my country, and one day I know I'm going to have a wonderful position within my country. But if that's not the case, then I will start aiming to go outside to find the jobs that will be paying well, and then also where I will be getting more work to do and growth. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And one of the factors that I did mention earlier on, Remy, and you've mentioned it somehow, is brain drain. The fact that Africa cannot retain its highly skilled labor. What is your take? Is it the same case in Rwanda?
I can say 50-50 because we are not on that level that we can say we can retain all the brains because we are still losing some of the people. Because even if we are trying, but still we can't afford to host all of them together. Like, let's say if we have how many doctors we that graduate in each year, but we can't afford them all in all the sectors because there are no positions for them like at once, because still it's a transition of taking old people out, creating more new vibrant jobs to give to them. All those things happens, yet but some of them are moving, but we are doing great and we are retaining many of the brains. And also there is a campaign where like each year we host Rwanda Day, where the president go in diaspora and meet all the diaspora communities around the world. And in those meetings, there are other side meetings that happens where they show opportunities in Rwanda, and the ones who are in diaspora who are willing to come back and support their country, they are encouraged to come. And you have seen many people come back. Our prime minister was in diaspora. Many ministers in our country were in diaspora, and other people in senators, all those things, all those areas, because you can see that it is gaining momentum. We are showing how our country is better than where they are, and then they come back. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I'm happy, every time I think of your president, there's a smile that comes out of my face. Remy, I will not take so much of your time. So happy, about 2 weeks ago I was in Addis and I met a very wonderful friend of mine. Her name is Diana. You two, when I come to Rwanda, I'll make sure that you two meet. And she told me of a concert that was happening in Rwanda by John Legend. Did you hear of that? Did you attend it?
Unfortunately, I didn't attend. I was outside of Kigali, but I saw a few highlights from YouTube. So yeah, it was an amazing event.
Oh
Really.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
She told me, Austin, you should come, She figured out that I share some sentiments with her. I love John Legend. I love this guy and he's a great musician. And I'm sure looking onto the color of his skin, I'm not giving a discriminatory remark here, but I'm sure he can trace back his history back into Africa.
Yes, yes. I think I heard of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. So, what's happening in Rwanda? What has been happening recently? What's happening in the next couple of days? Do you want to share?
Uh, okay, sharing, tapping on that, I think you already talked about it. We hosted the Move Africa concert for the second edition, and it was a success, even though there were many other side, challenges and discussion about it, and really in relation to the conflict near our country, DRC, in the eastern DRC, and but at the end of the day, it happened. But besides that, we also are having currently Tour de Rwanda. It's a cycling event which is really well known across Africa and across the world, and it is also a good event that engages everyone around. Everyone is excited when that happens. It creates a lot of jobs as well. It creates a lot of interaction and all the business, because it passes all the corners of the country, and everyone gets involved, and it's a wonderful event. Yeah.
I would really want to attend that. When is that happening, Remy?
It takes place each February every year.
But
So
February also
unfortunately,
it has already taken place. It has already
yes,
passed.
is I think they are finishing the last stage today, if I'm
Oh
not
wow.
mistaken. Yeah.
I just grabbed my pen. I was about to mark it on my calendar so I plan coming.
I'm so sorry. I can't see. But we are hosting the World Cycling is it championship? I don't remember the name of the event in coming months. Maybe I will get the exact dates, then you can definitely attend that. Yeah.
Okay, so when you
Yeah.
say the world, you mean people from all over the world come for that contest?
Yes, and I think it has been going around the world, and now it's our turn to host it. But it's a big
Wow.
event, so it will bring all the champions around the world in cycling.
Oh, wow. And this is okay. So this is happening in Rwanda. And when you say next month, is it March? It's first of March or is it April?
I said next month. I'm not sure which date. Maybe in our next session, I will inform you about
You'll
that.
share that. So next month meaning April, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, appreciate it. April, I should be looking forward to coming to Rwanda. Anything. I've been lucky. Remy, I must say, I attended the World Cup in Germany. I went to the one in South Africa. I had a gist of the one that was happening in Qatar. And that fever when you have the world in your country is just so beautiful. I want to really feel that again. So be rest assured, if I know of the dates and more about it, I will be very keen to attend. So, what would your parting remark be on this eighth episode of Wake Up Africa?
Thank you so much. My takeaway today will be encouraging everyone, including you and including the ones who are hearing us today, that Africa has the potential to be the biggest country, the biggest continent, sorry, in the world in terms of economy, in terms of politics, in terms of everything, because we have what it takes. What we need is just to grab the opportunity we have now, because it will not stay there forever. And people have been using our opportunities in the past. They have been exploiting both financially, both uh, human resources, both in all areas. They have been using us for their advantage, but it's time to take the lead and take advantage of the opportunities we have now to move Africa and grow together. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and I wish you a smashing weekend, my brother. Have the blast, and let's talk next week. I will share with you the topic for next week, but it will all be looking onto these global, events that come into Africa, and how can we make sure that we also have our own chapters in Africa? How can we make sure that we make the most out of them?
All right. Thank you so much, Austin.
Thank
I
you so
look forward
much,
to that.
Remy, and I wish you heaven's best. Pass my
Thank you
regards
so
in
much.
Rwanda.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. And without further ado, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa, I have my very own Alan Subi, all the way from Uganda, joining us as I just concluded with John Rennie from Rwanda. Alan Subi, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Africa.
Morning, Austin.
You have woken up on the wrong side of the bed today. I can bet. Because I'm used to that vibrant, I'm used to that energy from you. But all in all, it's a beautiful Saturday morning. This is Wake Up Africa, and I'm honored yet again to really rewrite Africa's narrative as we are discussing labor movement from outside Africa. And I really wish to pick your brains, Alan, on to what people regard as one of the factors for movement of labor from Africa being better job opportunities. The other one that has been highlighted is higher wages, improved living standards in countries outside Africa, but also poverty and employment, political instabilities. What is your take?
Yes, so Austin, the the bad thing about coming on late and submitting last is then you you're repeating what everyone else has said, because I was also
I want you
hearing.
to emphasize on some points.
Yeah, I've been listening in on the submission from Rwanda, and he couldn't have put it better. While we are struggling with I'll speak on behalf of Uganda. Ugandans are struggling with some countries in the Middle East, in Asia, that are taking our labor, our girls, and mistreating them and whatnot. Okay, at least that's what's in the media. Of course, when you get to the bottom of it, not everyone is being mistreated, but the general outlook is actually quite good, because these are girls in Uganda when they are not employed or when they are doing domestic work, which pays about 100,000. That's about less than $50 a month. So to go there and get exposed to a, a higher wage, they are able to they're able to send some black tax home. Okay, they're able to take care of their families back here. They're able to construct homes. There's so much they're doing right now back home that our country, to be fair, cannot offer them. So once we deal with with paperwork for their employment, and we formalize it, and we do away with the mistreatment, because of some cases that have come up, I think this is not a very bad thing, Austin. It's not a bad thing for doctors to attain a good education here, let's say, and get a better opportunity in Germany. It's not a bad thing for a journalist here in Uganda to go work with the BBC. I think these are beautiful, these are brilliant opportunities, and we should be opening up to many more. Our Ministry of External Affairs should be, and all our diplomats should be really lobbying for more of these opportunities, because then the country gets to benefit. And listen, we are not out of skilled laborers. Uganda is not out of skilled laborers. No one has died, and the story has been that the surgeon has been away, in India, working in a hospital in India, so they were not able to operate. No, we have enough here. So because we have more than enough skilled laborers, and yet the opportunities here are fewer, then the overflow is going on to other markets, and I think it's a good thing for the country. Should we make working conditions here better? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But should we whine about us losing skilled laborers to other countries? Absolutely not. Yeah. I think this is something that we should take pride in.
I totally agree with you, and I'm not looking on to good or bad. And this is what takes me on to my next question. I'm looking on to now. if we take this labor, if we take this journalist to go to the headquarters in London is called the Bush House for BBC, to go work there, who then remains back and build Africa? Who then remains back and build Uganda and Rwanda and Tanzania and South Africa and all these other African countries? Who then remains back to build South Sudan?
We are here. You and I, Austin, we are here. So
Mm,
I think the way I'm looking at this is those that have taken on these opportunities to go work abroad, good for them, but they're also leaving more professionals, more seasoned people back home to train the younger generation. And if this younger generation is also exposed to better opportunities abroad, they should also go. You know, we have, our education is good. We have enough people this side. Actually, we are overpopulated as a nation. So if some of the people that are coming out of, let's say, Makerere University, the great, are able to go practice their skills elsewhere, it's good on the university. I'm always feeling such a huge sense of pride when I hear about Ugandans working here and there, people I have gone to school with that are based in other countries. It's always a good thing. And like I said, Austin, then the responsibility is on you and I who are practicing back home to raise a generation that's also going to be good enough to attract the international markets. So I think that's for you and the government to work on, us who are based here. But I think generally it's a good thing if we can take on that responsibility instead of feeling like, you know, there are some of us that are back home but wishing that we could get opportunities abroad. Yeah,
mm.
because the other people are better, they're earning
Allow
more.
me, allow me to pick on that very line as we are almost drawing closer to the end of the program, that we wish to get the opportunity abroad.
Yeah.
What can you open up that wish? What your wish list? What is it that you really want to see to go for abroad that cannot be created and retained back at home?
Uh, Most times it's better opportunities for the children and uh, better pay because, let's face it, people in the communications industry that are working outside of Africa are earning a lot more. So how do we bridge that gap on our end? If the opportunity is there to take on 2 or 3 jobs at one time in order for you to fill in the gaps, I think we can make use of those opportunities as opposed to waiting for the green card or that opportunity to come and you leave the country. What if it comes 10 years from now? What have you been doing these 10 years? So my really appeal is for us to be happy where we are. I'm not stopping anyone from exploring opportunities out of the country, but if it does not come now at a time when you want it, then there's a lot of value that you can still give your country serving here and training the next generation as you wait for that break. That break can even actually happen here in Uganda. We've seen stories from grass to grace happening here in our nation. So it's not that the other side it's all rosy, and then it's not like we cannot find the rosiness here in our motherland. So, wherever the opportunity finds you, you can grasp it and make it work for you. But there are so many things that people are looking at, people that relocate. Our political uh, let me call it instability, really, because
Mm.
you've seen what happened in Kenya, you've seen what's happening here in Uganda. You know, some of those things, drive people away. They say, I'd rather be in a country where there's peaceful transition of power. For the most part, this place is peaceful. I can run my businesses here. You know, things like that. There are many things that people look for, but we should also be contented where we are here in.
And my last question, you said, Alan, earlier on, is on to, you said better opportunities for children. Yes, you're looking onto the education. I'm sure you also mean health, etc. But when then should we stand as the continent and say, let us build better and conducive environment for our own children, for their children's children, so that Africa remains the Africa that we want to see for our children?
Um, the time is now, it's yesterday, and from the conversations we've had before on this platform, we have acknowledged what the governments are putting in, the work they're putting in into the health sector, into the education sector. It is a slow process. If you're standing somewhere watching, it is rather frustratingly slow, but we should trust it anyway. We can trust that I'll give you an example. This year, we're running out of time, but this year in Uganda, we're changing, we've changed the S4, that's UCE curriculum, which is going to also change the USCE. So, there are reviews happening each year and changes are being made, and more practical courses are being brought into the curriculum. So we shall get there. We should just be trusting of the process, and hopefully, hopefully we'll get there in good time.
I had to really put up a smile because the policymakers of the education sector, of the health sectors, are the ones who go abroad for treatment. They really wouldn't see any of the challenges if they really want to put the change. And I did mention this earlier that, we've politicized the service sector and we really can't get much out of it. We have to think of outside Africa for education and for health and other service sectors. But then we really need to remain grounded, Alan. That the essence of rewriting Africa's narrative as far as labor migration is concerned is really the governments and the private sector must really think of how we can retain and rebuild Africa. So, what is happening in Uganda? What has been happening for the past days, and what is happening in the near future? You want to share?
Yesterday we saw we saw a cloud of rain for a few minutes. I believe the first one in about 2 months. So we've
Wow.
had temperature going up to 34, 35. It's really been hot. This heat wave has really had us by our necks. But campaign season still ongoing. Yesterday, newspapers in Kenya took a break from running stories about their president, and we're we are more concerned about what's happening in Uganda. We're having some political unrest. Really, there's an opponent. I think Colonel Besigye, who's been in jail. He's still in jail, and the Twitter spaces are filled with the hashtag Free Besigye. So that's what's happening in Uganda, and that's what Kenyan newspapers were talking about yesterday. But we are hopeful that justice will be served at the end of the day. He's on hunger strike. I don't know how long he can sustain it, but we are watching. We are watching.
Okay. And you have the general elections, I remember, this year.
Yeah, it's January next year. So this is campaign year.
Okay, all right. Cool. Do we already know the candidates or it's too soon for that?
Some we already know.
High
President
level?
Yoweri Kaguta come back. The rest we don't know yet, but we know
Okay.
that Museveni came.
Museveni will be coming back. We wish him good success. Now, Alan, what would your parting remark be?
My parting remark on this subject is, I always insist, Austin, that I'm a very optimistic person. So I like to look on the bright side of things, but I also don't run away from the fact that the statistics are not looking good. We need to find more attractive wages for our labor in order for us to retain the good ones, because of course it's the really, really good ones that are most times being taken. This needs to be a concern to our governments. The governments need to also concern themselves with the health and the formality of contracts of our laborers going abroad. So the ministries of labor across Africa need to be having these conversations, and they need to be drawing proper action points to help how to retain labor and how to take care of labor that's going out of the country, how to make sure that they are sending money back home. These are all conversations that need to be happening. Yeah.
Mhm. Alan Subi, thank you very much. You are, as always, my guardian angel, and thank you for your contribution. You are absolutely, and I want to concur with you fully. It's always good to see Africans take jobs, but we also need to really think that if we continue going abroad and offering the skills that are really needed, even back at home, then it's really going to take a lot more years to rebuild Africa. And this is the point I was really, gathering thoughts towards, looking onto how then we need to retain these skilled labor, retain in all aspects, as you said, the governments need to sit down and devise mechanism where they can actually be retained, so that we're able to see more labor is retained. A lot of development efforts are put into place for the next generation. So this is really to thank you. Thank Remy. Thank Africa. Thanks. The special thanks to Noreen. She's in the US of A, but she's coordinating, ensuring that we are live and the program is being broadcasted. And thank you so much, Alan Sobi, once again for being part of Wake Up Africa and really pouring your heart onto the topic.
Thank you, Austin, for having me, and have a lovely weekend.
I wish you the same. We are starting the Lenten season, so I look forward to seeing you fasting next Saturday.
Yeah, you sure will.
All the very best. Pass my regards to family. Wake Up Africa. We've come to the end of the 8th episode, which was looking onto the movement of labor, especially skilled labor, the movement of the youthful force that we have going outside Africa that really could be retained and build Africa. But again, it's beautiful as we see them take jobs outside Africa, but we also, as we do take jobs outside Africa, we really need to think home. We really need to think creating jobs. We really need to think remittances so that we build Africa. We do not come back in caskets. We come back with the cash that we're making so that we can build houses, build hotels, build jobs, so that Africa in the future, for our children, our children's children, becomes the country where people will really want to come. As we are attracted, so we attract labor as well back into Africa so that we are able to build the economy. Up until next Saturday, I'm your host, Austin Makandi. Once again, thank you all for being with us on Wake Up Africa. See you on Saturday on the